Welcome to another video from Gweilo 60. Yes, I'm back in a park, but that's not what this video is about. Meng Wanzhou trial just got postponed for another 3 months. And the reason why that is, it was asked for by the defense actually. They don't want the judge to make a judgment without having all of the information on his desk. The prosecuting attorneys for the Canadian government said, no, we don't need an extension. This is not a trial, this is an extradition hearing. Okay, so what they want is they want Meng Wanzhou to be extradited to the United States without being given full disclosure. Okay, well, where does this all come from? Back when the charges were laid in the United States in New York against Meng Wanzhou, it was all to do with a PowerPoint presentation that she gave to HSBC, a British bank in Hong Kong. All right, everybody basically knows that. HSBC stated that Meng Wanzhou in this PowerPoint misrepresented the association between Huawei and Skycom, a company doing business in Iran. Okay, and they said that they were not aware of this. During this time period, over the last 2 years that Meng Wanzhou has been under house arrest, or coming on 2 years that Meng Wanzhou has been on house arrest in Vancouver, they've attempted to get documents from HSBC stating that HSBC actually knew about the association between Huawei and Skycom. All right, so they brought suit in Britain. That was struck down by the British judge and said, no. But you see, everything actually happened in Hong Kong. So why go to a British court? Because it's HSBC is a British bank, eh? Okay, so what did Meng Wanzhou's lawyers do? They brought suit in Hong Kong. Yes, they did. And the Hong Kong judge says, yes, full disclosure is a good thing. And ordered HSBC to release these documents to Huawei and in court in Canada. Full disclosure is one of those things that everybody has the right to. And that's why they had the 3-month delay, so they could go over these documents. The defense could go over the documents and portray it to the court. Okay, what happens if these documents show that HSBC actually knew about the association between Huawei and Skycom? Meng Wanzhou comes back to China. Immediately, they'd have to toss it. There's just no way. The crutch of this legal action is that HSBC said that they were basically lied to by Meng Wanzhou in that PowerPoint, and this caused them to make a transaction through a United States bank against the sanctions that the United States put on Iran. So they're blaming Meng Wanzhou for their transaction that went through a bank in New York State. Exactly. So the thing is that if this falls apart, everything falls apart, and they'll just throw it out. Wasted 2 years for Meng Wanzhou? Definitely. But I think this is the final stroke that the house of cards is going to fall. You know, I can't say this any simpler than this. Meng Wanzhou was accused of misleading HSBC in Hong Kong. HSBC is a British bank. She was arrested in Canada for breaking American sanctions against Iran. So what do you got? You got China in Hong Kong, you got Vancouver in Canada, you got New York in the United States, you got Iran, and you've got the bank in London, England. How convoluted is that? Then you've got her being questioned for 3 hours by CBSA, the Canada Border Services Agency, rather than being arrested immediately by the RCMP as the warrant stated. She was made to give up her electronic devices and her passwords for those electronic devices. All of that was turned over to the RCMP. The RCMP presumably turned that over to the American authorities. Ben Chang, a high-level RCMP officer that had emails with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, was said to turn over this information to the FBI in the United States, trampling all over Meng Wanzhou's rights. And so they asked Ben, because he's a retired RCMP officer working in Macau now, they asked Ben to come back and give witness at the extradition hearing. He flatly refused. You know, I used to do this for a living. I used to serve papers, subpoenas being one of them. And, you know, I'm not very far away from Macau right now. So if you're one of Miss Meng's lawyers or whatever, and you want this guy served in Macau, call me. I'll make it happen. And then if he doesn't show up, they'll put a warrant out for his arrest. And if he's ever in an extraditable country to Canada, they can extradite his ass back to Canada. And then he'll have to pay for his sins, let's say. And I think one of the big disturbing things about this arrest of Meng Wanzhou at the Vancouver airport is she was just transitioning through Vancouver on her way to Mexico. Okay, CBSA never really gets involved with people that are transitioning through, only people coming into the country. So in reality, she wasn't coming into Canada, she was just waiting for her next plane to go to Mexico. So where did Canada Border Services Agency get involved with this, and at whose request? Because she wasn't coming into Canada, so they really had no reason to detain and ask her questions, interrogate her, grab her electronic equipment, get her passwords. They really had no reason to do that because she was not entering Canada. And you see, what their main reason for doing something like this is to screen people coming into the country. I used to do a lot of immigration work. I understand this stuff pretty good. They're there to screen people coming into Canada, whether they're admissible or they're inadmissible to enter the country. Meng Wanzhou is not entering the country, so that 3-hour interrogation was probably set up by, presumably, set up by either the RCMP, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or a conspiracy between all three of these law-abiding public service agencies, let's call them. Now, to even make this more convoluted, HSBC was under a DPA, a Deferred Prosecution Agreement, with the American government for doing financial transactions, dealing with countries that had sanctions against them, like the Sudan, Iran, Cuba, Libya, places like that, over the past 10 years. So rather than go to court, they paid a $1.9 billion fine. So they didn't have to go to court. If they were found guilty of breaking that DPA, God, fire and brimstone would come down around their ears, and they didn't want that. So what better way to get out of that than to make Meng Wanzhou a patsy? And I think that's exactly what we're looking at. But I think what they didn't understand at that time period, that Meng Wanzhou is no patsy. She has resources. She was given a chance to say, oh yes, I did something wrong, and she flatly refused that. I think they figured that they could bully her in to saying that she did something wrong. Obviously, that didn't work, and she's a stronger person, and she's a stronger person than they thought she was. And let's not forget about, Trump when he was president, saying he'd use Meng Wanzhou as a bargaining chip in the in the trade war with China. It's just all of these things from, CBSA questioning her when she wasn't coming into Canada, the RCMP turning over classified information to the FBI, even to putting her electronic equipment in a Faraday bag, and that was asked for by the FBI. From the HSBC being under a deferred prosecution agreement with the United States, from Ben Chang, the senior RCMP officer that was accused of sending emails to the FBI, won't show up in court, to HSBC not wanting to turn over internal documents that would prove that they knew about the relationship between Huawei, Skycom, Iran, HSBC, and all this other stuff. From a judge in Britain saying, no, you can't have that, to a judge in Hong Kong saying, well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And this is what really makes a kicker here, boys and girls. The judge in the extradition hearing stating and giving 3 extra months to go over these documents, because without full disclosure, they have trampled on every right that Meng Wanzhou was supposed to have in the Canadian court. The Canadian court system to the world, because of this fiasco, let's call it a fiasco, is starting to look like a kangaroo court. See, in Canada, you're not supposed to be arbitrarily detained. You're not supposed to have a court system where you're not allowed to have full disclosure. Your illegal search and seizure, all of the things that the Canadian legal system says you can't do actually was done in this case. And I think for those reasons alone, Meng Wanzhou will be exonerated, and she'll be back in China sometime during this year. But that doesn't mean that she did something wrong. I don't think she actually did anything wrong. I think that HSBC was looking for a scapegoat, and the American government was looking for something to tweak that trade war, and the Canadian government, that's the patsy. How dumb are they? Anyway, that's another video from Gweilo 60 on the Meng Wanzhou case. So we'll be coming back and looking at this thing again in about 3 months, if they don't drop the charges, because or drop the extradition hearing, because that's very likely to happen within the next 3 months, because as they put these documents into the court system, because once a defense has it, they give it to the court gives it to the prosecution decides whether they want to keep going forward or not. We'll have to wait and see how this all pans out, but I would imagine within the next 3 or 4 months, Meng Wanzhou will be back in China, and this will be just a bad example of how the Canadian legal system can be manipulated by a foreign government. Anyway, did I say that's another video from Gweilo 60? Boy, I get beside myself something right there. And that's another video from Gweilo 60. If you like this video, as always, like, comment, subscribe, push that share button. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to resubscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell. And whatever you do, don't forget to put a couple bucks in the children's Patreon account. It's for a good cause. Do I pick some beautiful places to make videos, or what?